Hey, what's up, all you addicts out there? Welcome to the Addicted Fishing Podcast. We're way behind on these things.
So, yes, I noticed we started the podcast before we did the Addicted Lives. Addicted Lives are at episode 30, and those things have been religious every Sunday.
Yeah,
so we're half a year into that, but I know we're about a year into the podcast, but we had a little hiccup there for about a month and a half.
We're behind. That's all right. We appreciate you guys tuning in every single week here. If you haven't, tap that subscribe button. Leave us a review, please, on iTunes, Google Play, all those awesome little platforms. Please leave us a review. And if you're on YouTube, tap the little subscribe button. We're going to try to make these a lot more immersive in the coming months on the YouTube channel. So tap the subscribe. We're going to redo the studio set in here. We're going to make it look badass for you guys. So tap subscribe. And who do we got in here tonight, Cam?
We've got Mr. Dave Shamp from the Hatchery Wild. A lot of different things. So why don't you rattle it off? Introduce yourself to our viewership out there.
So I'm here representing the Hatchery and Wild Coexist campaign that we just got started here about a month ago. We're excited to share the information with all your listeners out there. So thanks for the invitation to join you here this evening.
Right on. We just got done doing an awesome only YouTube live feature. So if you guys also want to go back and check that out, it should be up by the time you're hearing this.
It's already up right now.
Yeah, probably it's up right now. But yeah, you can go back to our YouTube channel and check out the live feed we just did with Dave Shamp. What is today's date? March 13th?
I have no idea.
Wednesday the 13th.
Yep, Wednesday the 13th. So go look that one up. You guys can check it out. We had some great interaction with the first, for almost 2 hours, honestly, on YouTube with a lot of great questions and great stuff. But we're going to kind of overview some of these because basically Dave is starting this campaign called Hatchery and Wild Coexist. Right?
Yep.
Once you roll through the nuts and bolts, I know you got to do it all over again.
That's okay.
101 level.
That's okay. Hopefully I'll get it right this time. So Hatchery Wild Coexist is a campaign to highlight the importance of hatcheries. They've gotten a bad rap over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, and we've been led to believe that hatcheries are actually bad for wild fish. And we're all about doing everything we can to protect and enhance our wild fisheries. So we kind of bought into that. But at the same time, we've noticed with a reduction, in some cases, elimination of hatchery plants, we've not seen the promised rebound in wild fish numbers. So we've seen that, those of us that are on the river every day, right? You guys see it out there guiding every day. You're waiting to see more wild fish returning. Hasn't happened. So recently, we actually worked with a couple of scientists who went back and reviewed some existing information and continued that study forward. And what they found is that removing hatchery fish had no impact on the abundance of wild fish, which is exactly what we've seen and what we know. So now there is science supporting our own observations. So it's time to change that narrative. Hatcheries are not bad for wild fish. And in fact, the science shows otherwise, that hatchery fish are either good for wild fish or they have no quantifiable impact on wild fish numbers. So we need to change the narrative. Hatcheries are good. They are not the enemy. And we need to do everything we can to improve the funding for our hatcheries. We need to improve the management of our hatcheries. And most importantly, we need to make sure that we're planting the best hatchery fish possible. And that's where the broodstock programs come in.
Boom, mic drop. Well, shoot.
So first of all, before we dive too deep into this, and if you're like, your mind's going crazy and you want to know where you can find this information, will you hand me that thing right there?
I will.
I got to read this big giant thing here, and I'm going to try to, it's www.hatchery-wild-coexist.com. Or you could just go to Facebook and type in Hatchery and Wild Coexist, and you could click the link directly from the Facebook page because I'm sure they have it on there.
Exactly.
So if you're looking for more information right out the gate before we even dive deep into this podcast, go check it out.
Yeah. And pretty much, guys, the reason why we've got Mr. Shamp in here is, as you guys...
I'm not that old.
Sorry. The reason why we've got Dave Shamp in here today representing this campaign is because, we've had a lot of talk, at our bashes. I know a lot of the guys have gone to our seminars where we'll sit there and, say, hey, we're looking for the answer. A lot of people that want to get engaged in helping out our fisheries. A lot of people who've seen fisheries and seen, what was perceived as robust runs or even a fish run at all taken away from them. Taken away from them for a lot of reasons, but a lot of them have been taken away because, honestly, there's entities that don't want to fight and aren't held accountable, honestly, for those fish returning to the rivers. And basically, these wild fish groups and a lot of other situations have gone in and been removing those. In fact, actually, one of their famous claims is one of the things that they were proud of was that they removed 1 million hatchery fish from the Washington waters. And I thought that meme was just striking, because for the guys that want to go out and fish and the guys that want to go out and have a fish to catch, we need those fish.
Exactly.
Now, this program, however, going back to what I was talking about, where we're thinking about starting our own group, we were telling you guys, we were trying to work with it, we're trying to figure it out. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of stuff that, honestly, Marlon, myself, and our guys, we just didn't know. So we were trying to look for the right answer. These guys launched this Hatchery Wild campaign at the Sportsman Show, and in talking with these guys, like, this is exactly what everybody wants. It's something that everybody needs to get behind. This puts more fish in the water, and it does it in a correct manner at a good rate of return, and it doesn't hurt our wild fish, and in fact, in some cases, it can actually help our wild fish. This is the answer, guys. This is the thing that we've been telling you about for years, that we need you guys all to start to get behind. I mean, I can't stress it enough. It was funny because when we were going back through and trying to talk about a group, okay, we want to get robust fisheries. We want to increase plants, and this is how you do it. You increase plants with the right fish that are supposed to be in those river basins. If you're not hurting the wild fish, then you can add the hatchery fish, and you can add hatchery fish to take and catch. So guess what? The more of those programs that go around the state and are implemented everywhere, that means less crowding on the very few strongholds of steelhead that we have left. Right. So you know what? You got to expand this out. This is something that a sportsman who's in Seattle, if you're listening to us, all the way down to Eugene, if there's broodstock programs going on anywhere around you, anywhere around the Northwest.
If you fish for salmon and steelhead, period, in the Northwest, if you fish for trout, bass, walleye, sturgeon, crappie, you need to get behind this campaign, and please pay attention to it and understand that it is extremely important for the fisheries and for the Pacific Northwest in general, that there is healthy, abundant fisheries in our region.
Right. I mean, for the guys that complain that there's too many kokanee fishermen now, or too many walleye fishermen in the Columbia River, or
we're all coming there because we don't got any salmon or steelhead.
Exactly. There's less soccer fields to play on, and I know you guys have all heard me talk about the soccer field thing, but yeah. So anytime you can support,
explain that again, just really quick for people that don't understand.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you have 10 soccer fields and you close 3 of them, well, everybody who wants to still play soccer, they show up to the 7th. I mean, and that's why you see like the crowding, and that's why you see, these situations. But if you have all 10 soccer fields open and you open 15 while you're at it, you're going to spread those guys out. You're going to get more people engaged in the sport, and ultimately that's what we need. But this program, this campaign, Hatchery Wild, is region wide. This isn't just focused, on one little area. This is to change everybody's way of thinking. They have the science to back it, and then this is going to start to trickle up to the legislature, trickle up to the entities and the powers that be that implement these programs. And this is how it starts. Right here, right now, this is how it starts.
Right, and that's the basis of the campaign right now, is to provide fact-based information for everybody to read, digest, and really make up their own opinion as to where they are on this thing. There are a lot of folks that really get behind the wild fish thing, and that's understandable. We all want to make sure that our wild fish are protected and enhanced to the degree that they can be. But at the same time, we all want robust fisheries. That's why we do what we do. And those can be contradictory at times. But we want folks to know the facts. We've got the studies listed. In fact, I was telling these guys earlier, we've identified 22 studies that relate directly to this issue. And out of those 22 studies, 14 of them show that either hatchery fish are good for wild fish, or that hatchery fish have no quantifiable impact on wild fish. So it's almost 2 to 1. 14 to 8 that show hatchery fish are not a bad thing. But it's become so ingrained into our minds, into the decision makers' minds, that hatchery fish are bad. They've let our hatcheries go into disrepair. They've cut back funding. Look at how many rivers you guys fish that they used to plant 300,000, 500,000 fish, and now you're getting maybe 100,000 fish. Well,
if that,
or none.
or none, and that's happened. For the sake of supposedly saving wild fish, they have eliminated complete hatchery programs. On the Clackamas River in Oregon, they destroyed a world-class summer steelhead fishery trying to protect wild winter steelhead. And the outcome of eliminating that world-class fishery was absolutely no positive impact.
Yeah, and there was actually a study that just was released 2 months ago that was only focused, right, on the Clackamas and those summer fish, and that they had zero detrimental effect. Zero.
Peer-reviewed science.
Yeah, American Fisheries Society.
The highest... I mean, that's the toughest.
Slam dunk.
That's it.
Why, but we all got, well, basically a bunch of people drank the Kool-Aid.
Exactly.
And said, okay, well, these summer fish are bad. We'll get rid of them. And like I said, the sad part is look at the economics behind it. Look at like how robust that fish was. It was taken away for nothing.
And you're right. It had
we had the same thing right here in our own backyard.
Oh, it's
huge
coming.
Impact
It already has.
on the city of Estacada. Those rural economies out there that depend on these fisheries.
For nothing.
In our local town right here, we used to have a fishing store that was amazing. It was like the coolest little fishing store in the world. And she literally supported her fishing store off of this river. Like there was hatchery fish in this river. People came to this river to fish for hatchery fish.
But let's talk about those hatchery fish, because one thing, it's not just willy-nilly any hatchery fish. Not all hatchery fish are created equal. So like let's talk about what's that?
Very well put.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about like how we got here, because I like what Jack was saying. I want to give him credit for this because that was a great question. 30 years ago, or maybe 40, I can't remember the number, but there was a decision made by our state agencies to say, okay, we have a hatchery, we need to help the fish. What do? Do we make a segregated stock, and then do we try to push that stays away from the wilds and we leave the wilds alone, or do we bring the wilds into hatchery? And we all kind of know what the answer is. Well, most of the guys in the know what the answer is. They chose the segregated stock, and they guessed wrong. But why is that? Like, why are those fish so wrong? So these are hatchery fish too, mind you.
But they've been inbred for decades. So they're essentially a domesticated fish. So it's looking at the difference between a buffalo and a beef cow. Right?
There you go.
They kind of started in the same place,
that.
but they're totally different today. And that's what happened with these hatchery fish over time. And they're unfit. I mean, their genetic pool is washed out because they've been inbred for so many years. And you can see that in the river, right? So you catch a wild fish, and it's 12, 15 pounds. Hopefully you're going to catch one of those 20-pounders, right? But the hatchery fish are all 4 or 5, maybe a 6-pound dink. You can tell just by looking at them, as soon as you hook them, you know what you've got a hold of, just merely by size.
But what does that mean for the sportsman? Because you have those beef cows coming back now that they've been inbred, and at the end of the day, you only can rear so many fish in a hatchery, for whatever reason, money, capacity, or because of what nymphs and NOAA say you can put in this river. But the rate that those fish return, those beef cows, is garbage, or it's getting worse.
Right. Yeah, maybe a 1% return.
At best.
At best. And the broodstock programs that we're talking about, so the integrated programs, they see a much higher rate of return. So you could plant 100,000 fish and you're going to get 4 to 5% return as opposed to that 1%.
Which is 4 to 5 times more. And
like you were talking earlier, it could be 8 times.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, if you only can put 150,000... Now, there's 2 things we're advocating for here, too. Is that if you're only going to put 150,000 fish in a river, you want to make sure they're good ones. But, maybe put 300,000 instead of 150, and then we're really talking.
Yep.
And there's no detriment to that. So you have those hatchery fish. So we're talking broodstock now. So you're raising buffaloes. You're raising, good, genetically sound, fit fish. You've brought 2 wild fish into hatchery. You've spawned them. All their eggs survive to whatever the release size you're going to have them be. And certain rivers, I think, produce better if they're one size or another. Right. But you clip them, and then you put them out to sea, and then they come back as hatchery fish. But we don't catch them all. So where does that go, as far as those fish spawning in the gravel?
If there's capacity in the river, which means if the wild fish haven't taken up all the available spawning area, so if there's remaining areas available, those hatchery fish are likely to spawn naturally. They're just one generation away from being a wild fish. And one of the things that the anti-hatchery fish will tell you is that you take two wild fish, you spawn them, you raise their offspring in the hatchery, it changes their genetics. It makes them an inferior fish in the mind of the scientists. But if they come back and spawn naturally, in one generation they go back to the same genetics that they had they not ever spent any time in a hatchery.
And is that just because when you take two wild fish and you spawn them in the hatchery, you essentially get 100% egg to smolt to survival, where in the wild you see a
I'm curious about that too. What makes it inferior genetically? What makes it inferior
they all survive.
genetically?
Survival of the fittest doesn't take place between the eggs and smolt.
That's an interesting way to put it, and I've asked that question too. And the guys that know, the scientists and the guys that really get into this stuff, get into all these genetic triggers and things. They get into the minutia, and it's way over my head. But it has been shown time and time again that there is a genetic difference between a fish that's been raised in the natural environment and a fish that's been raised in a hatchery. Even though that only took 6 months, it has something to do with these triggers. In a hatchery, they're getting a handful of food every 4 hours, right? In the wild, they've got to go out and search and find their own food.
That's true.
So as Cameron was saying, it's survival of the fittest, and they develop these different traits and abilities to survive in the wild that they don't in the hatchery.
Yeah, and in the wild, just because I should be studied up on this, but in the wild,
egg,
I know, right? Egg to smolt survival though sometimes can be 20%.
Yeah.
At best. Yep. And so you don't, or less. And so like I said, you had the hatchery. It's essentially, they have egg loss, and I get it. But
it's not 100%, but it's pretty doggone close. Yeah. Much more controlled environment.
But once again, so you breed those fish, you send them out, and they all survive the smolt. So now instead of those, let's just do some fuzzy math. Those 10 pairs bred 20,000 smolt, and for those 10 pairs in the river, you would have only gotten 2,000 smolt. But if those 20,000 smolt come back, and those adults come back, and they spawn in the gravel,
that's a good thing.
Doesn't matter. Right. It's a good thing, because then those fish that only produce 2,000, those 10 pairs that only produce, you're going to get more of those pairs.
And what did it cost you to produce those fish?
Well,
nothing, because they're coming back. They're spawning in the wild just like a wild fish.
And they're unclipped, and so then you're helping the wild, and then you're also increasing the pool that you can take from.
That's the abundance. Yep.
Mind blown. What the hell are we doing? Why?
Well, what's crazy too is there's rivers all over the place where they've literally taken hatchery fish and used them to restore.
Right.
Yeah.
They've done that all over the place. Yeah. All over the place.
Yeah, at least to get the starting block.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And rivers that, exactly. Or strays, like you said.
Yeah.
You take examples
Mother Nature will do it herself.
Exactly. You take examples of Mount volcanoes blowing up or examples like that, and complete decimation of every life form in existence. And then they say it could take 30 years before a river would see life back, and it got life back in 3. Spawning steelhead back in the river 3 years after it blew.
And where'd they come from?
Who knows? They don't even know. It was decimation.
Who cares, right?
Yeah. Hey, they're in there. Yeah. And then you look at the other thing too, where there's four sockeye back, at redfish. They grabbed them all, put them in the hatchery, and now there's they're getting stuff going there.
Yeah.
And that all came from hatchery. It wasn't going to do it on its own. But I think people forget that we put hatcheries in there. We put hatcheries on these rivers to begin with because we identified a problem with our fish numbers and our runs. But these wild fish groups and some of these other entities out there, they want to put the blame on these hatchery fish, which removes fish from your sport fishery. Right? Yeah. And I understand we want to get the good rate of return. We want the biggest, like you said, we want the biggest bang for the buck. But the problem is you removed these hatchery fish, but you didn't do a damn thing else to fix the problem. You did every 30 feet on any river, there's a house, there's a culvert, there's highways, agriculture, pollution, Portland, logging,
dams.
You have all these other issues that affect sea lions feeding behind dams. Holy crap!
I mean, you could literally sit here and come up with 100.
So you basically said, okay, we're going to ignore all those, and we're just going to get rid of the hatchery fish and expect all these other fish to show back up and not do a damn thing about any of those other problems. How'd that work out?
It
did.
It did not work out. And what a lot of folks fail to realize, that the whole reason that hatcheries are in existence is to mitigate for those kinds of effects. They build a dam, they build a hatchery. They go out and wipe out or eliminate access to all this spawning habitat. The way they mitigate that is to build a hatchery.
They were there to begin with.
So the hatchery didn't cause the problem. The hatchery is there to try and mitigate, to the degree possible, what caused the problem. The loss of fish.
I mean, even commercial. I mean, I'll throw commercial fishing in there. There's a million different things that you could say why a run has been decimated. But at the end of the day, you're not fixing any of those problems.
Yeah, overharvest without question has been a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's all been by commercial, but a significant portion has been. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it's so aggravating because seems like a pretty easy solution. So talk to me about, for those guys that know, like this broodstock thing. I know you guys have seen it on some of the Addicted Life stuff. We're trying to push it out there. We feel that this is definitely like been a campaign that we've been thinking about. Trying to do like something like this on our own for a while now. These guys have it down. These guys have the legislative prowess, if you will, that we'll never have. The lobbying, everything on the federal side. But this campaign and this thing it's not, broodstock's not new. Like, you guys,
no.
I say you guys.
I was blown away when he told me when we were filming that episode that it's been going on for 25 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it was going on before then. So those are the permitted, state-acknowledged programs that are
But the blueprint's there. So tell me about those programs. I mean, how'd they start? I mean, like, what was the idea behind it? I mean, you guys were seeing the hatchery fish not return worth a darn and tried something new, and you used it on a decent population of wild fish to start.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And we talked earlier a little bit about Jack Smith, who was really the guy that made the broodstock happen and made sure that it was successful on the Wilson River. And I asked Jack, I said, so what caused you to get involved with the broodstock program? Where did this come from? It wasn't a bolt of lightning that hit you in the middle of the night. Where'd you come up with this? And it actually started in British Columbia, right? So they started doing these programs. Jack became aware of those, talked to his local fish biologist and said, hey, how come we're not doing this here? And the fish biologist kind of rolled his eyes, shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. So let's see what we can do. So working together, we had a group of volunteers. We've had a long-standing funding program on the North Oregon coast. The North Coast Salmon and Steelhead Enhancement Fund, also known as the North Coast Rendezvous, has been in existence for about 35 years. And, some of the things that were identified by the state agency was they needed facilities modified in order to be able to accommodate the broodstock program. Changing piping, they needed to put some partitions in some of their ponds. There were some screening issues. A lot of things needed to happen in order to ensure that this program would be as successful as possible. So those local dollars, those dollars that had come from fishermen like you and me that had participated in this fundraising event all those years, paid for that improvement in infrastructure. So we're paying through fees, but here we are taking our money saying this is important enough for us that we're going to invest these other dollars. And here we are 20 years later, and it's a hugely successful program. So we're talking about the Wilson River, of course, in the Tillamook area. Subsequent to that, the Nestucca River was the next, and I think actually the Siletz was one of the first broodstock programs on the North Oregon coast, and it's really getting an injection now. There's a group of guides and anglers down there that have really taken an interest in trying to improve that program. We just had a fundraiser this last weekend, hugely successful. So I really look for good things to come out of the Siletz.
And really quickly, all you addicts out there, really quickly, all you addicts out there listening, we know that we have a no river name clause, and the reason we started the no river name clause was for one reason and one reason only. We didn't want to be the guys that were out there promoting report chasing and heading to rivers when you hear if bite's hot. And so in the essence of the subjects that we're talking about when it comes to Hatchery and Wild Coexist, it's very important that we're able to talk about rivers, but it's not going to ever be in a manner where we're like, the Celeste River's on fire, go fish it, the broodstock are returning this week. Like, we will never, ever, ever be a report-based platform, ever. And anyone that doesn't like that, I'm sorry.
Click.
And I can tell you straight up, fishing hasn't been good on the North Oregon coast this year.
Well, and regardless, this is also a subject matter that is so important that we feel like, I mean, you're right. Everything is in a downturned year.
Right.
There's a bunch of reasons for that, but even then, even in that downturn year, there's still rivers that. Some of these rivers are broodstock rivers that they're definitely more successful than some of the other rivers because they have a good rate of returning broodstock. Then they also have some healthy wild fish too. But even within the whole down year thing, these are still the shining stars.
Well, I think it comes down to that.
And the conditions suck this year.
Yeah, well, it comes down to the management philosophy. I think currently state agencies are planning the number of fish based on how much money they have available or how much money they're willing to spend on hatcheries. They're not managing for abundance. So when we have a down year, like we're experiencing the last couple of years, and in particular this year, we're not going to see a good return because everything's working against those fish. But if we were managing for abundance, so we were managing for those down years to make sure that we had a good, healthy, strong return when all the factors are working against the fish, think what would happen when those factors were all working in favor of the fish. It would be absolute off the hook fishing. You wouldn't have to go to Alaska. It'd be happening right here.
And this isn't a pipe dream either, guys. Episode 30 or episode 29, Addicted Life. Check it out.
That's in the Northwest.
That's in the Northwest.
And that's one thing that's always bugged me about it. It's like we have to fly to Alaska, or we talk about going to these destinations. It's like these destinations should be right in our backyards. I mean, we live.
Yeah.
There's 6 rivers right here, right in our own backyard.
The difference between those destinations, though, and here is that we have development here. We have to mitigate for that development. This is a way you can do it because if you have, let's say you have an insane, awesome, good broodstock return of those clipped fish, they spawn in the gravel. It doesn't matter.
And I challenge someone to bring us that. I challenge someone, because I've looked, someone to bring a river to me that has development, has horrible habitat loss, and show me a wild run that's strong and healthy on a river like that. You won't find one. All the ones that are strong and healthy are ones that have next to nothing in habitat loss. Right. I mean, that's just all there is to it. You can go look at them all.
Nope, there's no question. One other thing that this Hatchery and Wild campaign is going to be doing and be helping out with too is also telling the other side of the story. So going back to those 14 out of 22 studies that you guys have, when these guys, when the idea that these wild fish were magically going to return on their own, there was some advocacy groups out there that aren't necessarily our friends going around and pushing those other studies or some very small indicator studies in front of judges, and they were the only voice in this fight. And basically, we lost a lot. So Hatchery and Wild campaign is going to be fighting against that, correct?
Yeah. So really the 3 major thrusts of Hatchery Wild campaign is, first of all, we think additional research needs to be done. That's expensive. Costs a lot of money to pay for that research to happen in a good, meaningful way. Second is advocacy, so providing information, getting the information out there so everybody knows the truth. We want to lay out all the facts. And then third is legal defense fund. So when we find ourselves faced with these ugly, cheapy, nitpicky, little technically based lawsuits, we'll be able to stand up and say, wait a minute. Because right now our state agencies aren't necessarily willing to do that because it costs a lot of money and they really don't want to go there. So they just fold and say, okay, I guess that's an excuse not to plant more fish in that river.
Those 200,000 gone. Yep. Those 100,000 gone.
And the Corps of Engineers has done that on the Willamette, sadly. They've just
they're mitigated, like they're under contract to plant those fish too. So they're using, in some entities, just like the state, are using it as a nice scapegoat to spend that money elsewhere
Yep.
and not put those fish in the water.
If there's any NFS or Wild Fish Conservancy or any of these wild fish groups that want to come into our podcast and explain their point of view, we would absolutely love to have you, and we would have an open dialogue. We wouldn't argue with you. We wouldn't yell at you. We would let you form your opinion, and we'd say our opinion. We would absolutely love that. We would love for you to come in and tell us why you think hatchery fish are so bad. So if there's any one of you out there that wants to come into our podcast, please email me, marlon@addicted.fishing. We'd love to have you in here.
Two sides to every pancake.
Exactly. Love to have them in.
But like I said, you use that Clackamas study.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of studies that have been forced upon us over the years that really amounted to nothing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. If you look at those studies, you look at those 22 studies, and the majority of those that indicate that there is a negative impact of hatchery fish on wild fish, those are old studies. Now, there is one fairly recent one in there, but the majority, that's old science. The new science, the more recent studies, are the ones that indicate that either the hatchery fish are having a positive impact on the wild fish or having no quantifiable impact on the wild fish.
Well, like I said, and then take this is going to sound as extremely ignorant, but take the science out of it. Just look at it on the ground. I mean, look at the robust fisheries that you got. Look at your Addicted Life episodes. See where fish are getting caught, and realize that hey, it's a bad ocean, and there's still fisheries there.
100 fish a day, right?
Just kind of,
it's unreal.
kind of think about that a little bit. So you can take.
And we fished one stream of multiple that are like that up there.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, but those hatchery
insane.
managers, they're managing for abundance. That's their goal, is to make sure that even in a down year, that they still get a robust return and providing a robust fishery. It's a totally different philosophy when it comes to that.
Well, it's accountability, because like you said, if they don't get those hatchery fish back, someone's going to get tarred and feathered up there.
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, too, now, we didn't mention this in that episode 29.
tar, I think that's a little extreme. Tar and feathered.
Well, whatever. I was going to say something else, but that was it. And now,
Well,
what I was going to say was going to be more extreme. But like I said, they're held accountable.
Yeah.
You know, they're held accountable. And if you guys, the other thing that we didn't mention, too, which is just kind of like a little misnomer, I guess, but in that episode 29, they gill net that river 6 days a week. They gill net it 6 days a week.
Literally, our guide was telling us, one of the hatchery guy,
Yeah.
he's telling us how he comes down there, fishes for him, goes out and gill nets, and then he works in the hatchery.
Yeah.
He loves it. He's like, I get like the
They
best of
gill
all three
net it
worlds.
6 days a week, and they still have those fish back.
Yep.
Unreal.
Yep. Well, that just tells you how many are coming back.
Well,
It's
like
phenomenal.
I said, that's what they plan for. So yeah, they dump a lot of smolts, but not only do they dump a lot of smolts, but they dump a lot of good, like the good smolts. They've been very selective on what they take.
The biggest and
The
the
biggest
baddest. The
and the
guy told me,
baddest.
he's like, we take the biggest and the baddest fish we can find.
You know, I think you got to be careful there. So again, our good friend Jack, I was talking to him about that. Is that really what we want to do when we're taking broodstock fish? And according to the scientists, those that know the real deal, the answer to that is no. You want to have a diverse group of fish that you're bringing back. And there was a study, and my memory fails me, where they actually did that, where they took the biggest and the baddest fish. And they did not, the return from those fish were not the biggest and baddest fish. They actually had bigger and better returns of bigger, more robust fish when they just selected all the way across the board.
Well,
So what are they doing? How are they doing
that up there?
Because they've been doing it for 20 years, or a long time, as far as my understanding.
I'm not familiar with what the tribes are doing, but
Right.
in all the broodstock programs that are happening on the North Oregon coast, they take them all.
And like I said, without getting into the weeds too, like
I'm not a geneticist.
I can understand. Okay, we don't want to just have, hey, let the fish fend for themselves and let's see what the hell happens without removing any development. And I also understand that the tribes also do a little bit of we'll call it genetic moving of some strains into other creeks and stuff. They've utilized some better genetics.
That's smart.
somewhere.
To me, all that is being smart.
That is in basin. That's what I always want to say, in basin
Yeah.
genetics. So
Yeah.
we'll just say in basin. So maybe that's the pendulum all the way over there, and we just need to be in the middle. Like
I
we
mean,
just
it's been
need to
proven that
realize,
steelhead do that anyway.
right? Well,
I mean,
absolutely.
they pit tag them and they'll swim 20 miles up one river, turn back around, and go up another river.
That's Mother Nature making sure that
yeah. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, so maybe it's like you don't need to go to that extreme, but hey, if you plant some damn good fish and they're good returning in basin genetic, not this segregated stock, those little 4 or 5 pound squirts, like, they came from the fish that are supposed to be in that river.
Best thing
best thing ever. So, I mean, and you get a better rate return.
Yep.
I don't get it. Why did we change? Why didn't we do that in the first place?
Well, if you look at those old segregated programs, the Alcee stocks, Skamania stocks, and those sort of
Chambers
things.
Creek for the guys in Washington.
Those fish were basically domesticated, so they survived very well in that hatchery environment. So they were easy to raise. It was easy to do. So that's what they did, and they didn't realize the
got lazy.
the potential negative consequences of that. And so we're just smarter today. We've learned a lot over the course of the last 20 to 30 years, and it's time to start employing and using that knowledge.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I had some fun days though on those stocks.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. We had great numbers.
There was incredible fishing sometimes back then.
Right. Well, they also put 500,000 fish to get that. Just imagine if they put
60,000.
Okay.
60,000 fish.
I understand that.
60,000 fish. Obviously, it was during runs. It was during times when you had. Yeah, if they would have put 300,000, it would have been insane.
No.
But how many more fish can you hook? We were in 30 fish days.
I know, but think
how
about
long
this.
did it last?
It didn't.
No, I mean you had a month.
2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, a month, maybe.
Yeah. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
And just imagine if it was, instead of 60,000 of hatchery, just imagine it was 60,000 of a brood stock.
Oh, I know.
That was returning at 4% and not 1%.
It's spread out over a 4-month period of time.
That's one thing I thought was really interesting. Jack was saying, talking about like early returning fish, and the way you get early returning fish is you just make a big damn run.
Yep.
And
they'll just naturally disperse.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like I said, they always say like a strong run is always early, and a weak run is never. Same thing there too. So if you want a longer fishery, that's not a 2-week flash in the pan, one rain shot second week of December and then done.
Right.
This is also something that you need to be advocating for.
Yeah, and that goes right to your soccer field example as well. So you spread that run out over a 4-month period of time rather than a 4-week period of time. It's just more opportunity for folks, and it spreads them out on the river. So it's good for all of us. Good for the fish and good for the fishing.
Ugh.
So how do they do that on rivers that they don't have, there's just no early returning, for example, the Cowlitz? They say all those fish come back in a 2-week time span in April, and that's when they return now. There's a wild broodstock proponent hatchery fish. You basically get a very small window at them. So how do they spread that out? Go look at last year. They all returned in a 3-week span in April. Every single fish.
I don't know if
so is it a water issue?
It's broodstock. That's broodstock on that river.
But was it 100%. A water issue?
I don't know, but that's my question. That's happened multiple years.
Unclipped. They're only spawning unclipped, true.
It's integrated broodstock. I have no idea.
Yeah,
it's 100% what they're doing now. That's why the whole beginning of that run is gone.
That's what. Well, they got rid of
700,000 fish they used to put in there, 1,800,000.
Right, there was a great excuse for them to get rid of those A runners.
But my understanding is that for years they've been working on trying to get those fish to return earlier. How the hell are they working on that? How do they do that?
No, I think I'm not sure the level, and I'm not sure exactly what. Like I said, I hate that river, so I don't pay zero attention to it. But what I do know is that I don't think they're taking only unclipped wild fish and spawning them, because I don't think they have as many as they. I don't know. I don't think they have as many as they need. That's why they're doing the integrated stock, where they're bringing some in. And
but you remember, every year in the NSI banquet, there's multiple steelhead returning to that river. Every single, or during the tournament. Every single year. Yeah, that's when they all return.
Yeah.
Why is that? Where's the rest of the? Why isn't the run being disturbed?
That late run just over and over and over again. I don't know, man. I don't know.
That's
but
a good question. I don't know either.
I don't think it's a. I don't think we're talking. I think we're talking two different programs, or maybe they are now.
My question was how you're talking about spreading a run out.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Abundance. It's interesting.
So if you're broodstocking all fish that typically genetically would return in March and April, by just stocking more fish, some of those fish will come back in December and January.
Yeah.
Well, think about your river. Why do we get those big ones?
So it's whatever. If you go back to a true wild run, or as close to a wild run as you get, it's gonna be what Mother Nature intended.
Mm-hmm.
And those fish will start coming back when she intended them to come back, and they'll keep coming back as long as she had intended. You know, this last weekend I mentioned that we were down fishing on the North Oregon coast, and now that I know I'm not supposed to mention the river's name, I won't. But fishing with a well-known guide who was raised on that river, has been fishing it all his life, and is a very strong proponent and very involved in the broodstock program there. And he was sharing what he's noticed is with the broodstock fish that are replicating the wild fish in their habits, is they come back in the river regardless of what the conditions are. So with true hatchery fish, and you guys have experienced this, you don't have any water, right? It's not raining, the water's low and clear, and there's no fish in the river. You're waiting for that freshet to come in, water goes up 5-6 feet, and all of a sudden the river's full of fish. Well, with the broodstock program, they tend to come in regardless of what those river conditions are. Now, they may slow their progression up the river. They may not come up as fast, but they still come.
I was going to say, could that have anything to do with, like, you know, all hatcheries, or vast majority of them have to use, like, a type of feeder creek, like a soning creek, basically, right? Where, like, so maybe that, you know, those little hatchery fish are so just, they're waiting to catch a, you know, shot of that water or something. You know what I mean? Maybe that's when they need to know when they go. Maybe they know somehow, right?
I just think it's Mother Nature's way, again, dispersing that run, right? So they're not coming, because if you think about it, if you had this one great big wad of fish coming up the river all at one time, I mean, they're pretty easy to decimate that run.
Right. Something detrimental happens, they wouldn't be around long.
Right. So Mother Nature's plan is to say, okay, we're going to bring them up. We're going to bring them back over a longer period of time, because that's better for the survival of the fish.
And if you
It's
think
just so weird, though. What makes I mean, there's got to be some science around that.
I keep asking them, but they won't tell me.
What makes a fish want to come back in like a certain time of month?
Think about this. No, I think actually it's a lot simpler than that. Would you agree that, okay, look at like the coho run. So remember, like, a few years ago when we had that giant coho run, we were banging them in the first week of August in the river, right? Last year, couldn't find one. We had a shitty run. Like I said, I think if 10% of the run shows up early, right, just for the natural progression of run, if that 10% is much bigger, because the whole run as a whole is bigger, you see it more.
Right.
It's true, yeah.
And I'm really hoping I see it this fall. With 1.1 million coming back.
Yeah. In every single
I don't want to talk coho and twitching yet. I'll start getting shakes.
So, really quickly to touch
guys,
on again, we've been on quite a long tangent. You guys, go to hatchery-wild-coexist.com. Go check out the website. Please sign up with your information. Give them your email, give them your phone number, give them your information so they can let you know when they need your help. When they need to call on the addicts or call on just the sport anglers in general and need assistance in some issue, they got to have your contact info. They got to be able to get a hold of you. So go give them your information and get involved in this campaign and help us be part of the future, honestly. Be part of the future of what the Pacific Northwest should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So as that new information becomes available, new studies come up, we'll share that information freely. So our goal, again, is to make sure that people have the best available information out there, and it's up-to-date information. So if we have a way of getting in contact with you, we'll make it as easy as possible. You don't have to go back and keep checking the webpage. We'll send it.
And there's been a lot of you guys out there over the last year that asked, what can we do? What can you do? What can you do? Support this.
Support hatchery fish. If someone comes up to you and tries to tell you that a hatchery fish is bad, tell them they're wrong.
Well, people. I mean, how many posts have we seen on the Addicted forum where it's like, oh, this group is suing over this group, and we see 5,000 comments on how pissed off they can be and what we can do to stop it. This is going to be a campaign that is going to build a war chest to be able to help stop and start reining this in a little bit. No question.
Yeah.
And you guys are also pushing the economics of this to the legislature and to a lot of other entities that need to listen and that are going to be listening.
Exactly.
Which is huge.
You guys are spot on. Yep.
I'm excited. This is something I know we're going to get behind. You guys out there, you're going to hear us.
We're going to be pushing this hard, everyone. So
this is it.
Just please pay attention and please join with us in leading this charge, because for the next 6 months to a year to 10 years, this is all you're going to hear us talking about when it comes to helping our fisheries with addicted. So please be a part of it.
Narrative. This is for you. This is for the next generation and the generations after.
Exactly.
Blueprint set. Now we just got to push it out there. You guys got it. You did it. Congrats.
Thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to share with your many, many listeners.
Awesome.
All righty,
well, to the future.
Thanks so much, everyone that tuned in. We appreciate you joining us for these podcasts. As always, please tap the subscribe button. Tap that YouTube subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Leave us a review. Comment below on this video and share this one out there. This is a big one for us. We really want to get this information out to as many people as possible. I felt like there was a lot of amazing information in this podcast. So share this. Please, please, please share this out there. Get it to as many people as possible. Because even if you can't donate money or you can't help in a certain way, just sharing this information out there to the people and going to their Facebook page, sharing their memes, just being a part of that and getting the information out there helps just as much.
Show people that you're paying attention to it. Show people, like I said, people, legislatures, Congress people, they're watching. They're watching this. I even had our local congresswoman tell us that they're watching this. I mean, they are watching social media now, especially this is good stuff. You know, this is great stuff.
All right, addicts, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll check you later. See you on the river.
Later, guys.